There's a certain truth about the world, one most men never see until it's too late. It's not because the signs aren't there, it's because they're wrapped in a beautiful disguise. Think about the last time you were caught staring at someone who felt almost unreal. The way she smiled, the way her voice seemed to pull you closer without a single step taken. In that moment, you didn't see danger. You saw magic. You didn't think about what she wanted, you thought about what you felt. But that's exactly where most men make their first mistake, because beneath the softness of that smile is something older than language itself, an instinct. An instinct that has shaped human relationships for thousands of years, and one that's never been about love in the way you imagine it. Arthur Schopenhauer, one of history's most ruthless truth-tellers, didn't dress it up in romance. He said it plainly. What you think is affection is often strategy. What you believe is forever is often a lease with an expiration date. His words weren't gentle. They weren't meant to be. He saw men drowning in illusions they gladly built for themselves. And he knew that if someone didn't rip the blindfold off, they'd live and die in chains they never recognized. To him, beauty wasn't just beauty. It was bait. A biological lure designed not for poetry, but for survival. And women, in his view, were the most skilled survivalists in human history, not because they were malicious, but because they were optimized by nature to secure the best possible deal for themselves and their children. Now, pause for a moment. Don't think about morality. Think about evolution. If you were a woman in a time when your survival depended entirely on the man you chose, would you pick someone out of pure romance or out of strategy? Would you risk your life on passion or choose the man who could protect you, provide for you, and ensure your children survived? Schopenhauer understood that answer, and he knew it didn't disappear just because the modern world became civilized. If anything, civilization made it more invisible, because today these instincts don't come with flashing warning signs. They come with tender words, with vulnerability, with the kind of affection that convinces you this time is different, until it's not. Modern psychology even has a name for what he was pointing at centuries ago: hypergamy, the quiet, relentless instinct to choose the highest value partner available, not just in wealth, not just in looks, but in status, security, and opportunity. And here's the part no one likes to admit. That instinct never sleeps. It doesn't care how much you've sacrificed. It doesn't remember the promises made in softer moments. It calculates, constantly. And when a better option walks into the room, the connection you thought was unshakable can evaporate overnight. Most men don't want to hear this. They'd rather keep the dream alive, the dream that love alone can hold a person forever. But dreams don't survive reality checks. And that's why Schopenhauer's warning still cuts as sharply today as it did centuries ago. She loves you until she doesn't need to. Let's strip away the romance for just a moment. Not the flowers, not the candlelight, not the way she tilts her head when she laughs, but the machinery running beneath it all. Because nature, that silent engineer, doesn't care about poetry. It doesn't care about your love songs, your heartfelt promises, or the late-night conversations you think sealed the bond forever. It cares about one thing: advantage. Centuries before words like evolutionary psychology existed, Schopenhauer looked at human relationships and saw something unsettling. He noticed that the tenderness men fall for so quickly often has a purpose that's far less romantic than they believe. Think of it like this. A man's fantasy is built on permanence, on the idea that love is an eternal flame. A woman's instinct, forged over thousands of years of survival pressure, is built on selection, choosing the partner who offers the best path forward at any given time. And if that path changes, so does her loyalty. It's not cruelty, it's efficiency. Nature has never rewarded loyalty to the wrong choice, only adaptability to the best one. Today, psychologists like David Buss have confirmed patterns that Schopenhauer could only observe in his time. Studies show that women, on average, place a higher priority on a partner's status, ambition, and resources than men do. Not because they're shallow, but because, biologically, these factors directly impacted survival for most of human history. Even more revealing, women's attraction preferences shift during their fertility cycle. When ovulating, they tend to favor dominance, confidence, and physical strength more strongly. It's as if an ancient algorithm runs quietly in the background, adjusting settings based on the moment's needs. Now, picture this from a man's perspective. You're told from childhood to just be a good guy, to give, to support, to love without conditions. You believe that effort equals loyalty, but the equation you're working with doesn't match the one nature wrote. You're speaking the language of permanence, while her instincts are speaking the language of advantage. And when the two languages collide, you feel blindsided. You hear words like, "I'm just not happy anymore. I need to find myself." This isn't working. It sounds like emotion, but underneath, it's logistics. This is why Schopenhauer's view wasn't just about women, it was about men's blindness. He saw how easily men confuse emotional connection with emotional dependence, how they mistake cooperation for contract, and in his bluntest moments, he wrote that the affection men treasure most is often a short-lived bloom, designed to capture, not to keep. A lease, not a lifetime. Harsh? Yes. But the longer you live, the more you notice it's not entirely wrong. In today's dating culture, where endless alternatives sit just one swipe away, this ancient instinct is amplified. Options aren't just available, they're immediately available. And when nature meets instant access, the rules you thought were unshakable dissolve. So the real question isn't whether this instinct exists. It's what you, as a man, are going to do once you know it exists. Because pretending it's not there won't protect you. Understanding it will. In ancient times, physical power decided everything. If a man wanted to rule, he had to be stronger, faster, more ruthless. But for women, brute force wasn't an option. So nature gave them something else. Weapons you couldn't see until they were already in your skin. Schopenhauer believed that women ruled not by logic or muscle, but through emotion. And he wasn't talking about just crying or pleading. He meant an entire arsenal of subtle tactics designed to influence, reshape, and control without a single command spoken. Modern psychology calls it covert power. It works not by confrontation, but by calibration. Picture this. She doesn't shout to win an argument, she falls silent. She doesn't demand you change. She simply withdraws warmth until you want to change. She doesn't tell you what to do. She makes you afraid of disappointing her. And before you even realize it, you've adjusted your words, your actions, even your dreams, just to keep the peace. Researchers like Sam Vaknin, in his work on emotional manipulation, have documented how these tactics are often not conscious schemes, but natural instincts. It's a survival mechanism honed over thousands of years. Influence without open conflict. The result? You think you're acting out of love, but you're actually responding to conditioning. Schopenhauer wrote that the man who doesn't understand this will spend his life apologizing without knowing why. Because he's been trained to see her emotional state as his responsibility, to believe that if she's upset, he must be failing. From childhood, boys are told to be sensitive, be patient, put her feelings first. What they're not told is that feelings can be strategic, even if unintentionally so, that emotions can be levers, and that in the wrong hands, those levers can be used to bend a man until he barely recognizes himself. This isn't to say women sit in dark rooms plotting these moves like a chess master. The point is far more unsettling. They don't have to. The programming runs automatically. In modern society, where physical dominance means little and emotional influence means everything, these ancient tools have only grown sharper. Social media has amplified them, giving near-infinite opportunities for validation, attention, and comparison. One photo, one comment, one like, and the leverage shifts. You see, Schopenhauer didn't fear beauty itself. He feared the power beneath the beauty, the quiet ability to bend a man's will without force, to make him believe it was his idea all along. And here's the brutal part. This power doesn't vanish when she loves you. It doesn't fade because you've been together for years. It's always there, waiting to be used when survival, security, or self-interest demands it. Most men never learn this lesson until it's too late. They confuse compliance with harmony. They trade leadership for peace. And by the time they realize they've been living by someone else's script, they've already given away the pen. Schopenhauer's advice wasn't to hate women for this. It was to recognize the game you're in and stop playing it blindly. Because once you see the weapons, you stop walking into them. You stop negotiating with emotional ransom. You stop living in fear of her moods. And that's when something remarkable happens. You start living by your own terms. The destruction of a man rarely happens in a single moment. It's almost never a dramatic explosion. It's slow, quiet, and disguised as love. It starts with small concessions. You cancel a night out with friends because she's not in the mood. You soften your words so they don't sound harsh. You abandon a personal goal because it's not realistic for the relationship right now. Each choice feels minor, even noble. After all, isn't compromise the foundation of love? But what you don't see is the erosion. Every small surrender chips away at something deeper: your boundaries, your independence, yourself. Schopenhauer saw it long before divorce courts, long before dating apps, long before a culture that turns masculinity into an apology. He saw that when a man measures his worth by how happy he keeps someone else, he's already lost the most important battle, the battle to remain sovereign. Modern life has turned this into a script. Men are told their highest value lies in sacrifice. Give more, feel less, want nothing. They're trained to treat their own needs as selfish, their own desires as dangerous. And so they pour themselves into the role of the perfect partner. They learn to read her moods before their own. They work longer hours to provide more. They say yes when they mean no because they fear the cost of conflict. And when, not if, she leaves, they're left hollow. They can't even remember who they were before her. Schopenhauer would say they were conditioned for this outcome from the start. Not by one woman, but by an entire culture that teaches men to serve love rather than share it. A culture that tells them, if she's unhappy, you must fix it, without ever asking if it should be fixed, or if the unhappiness even belongs to them in the first place. This is why so many modern men are adrift. They confuse peace for purpose. They think the absence of conflict means the presence of love, and they ignore the quiet truth that the cost of constant peacekeeping is self-erasure. Here's the most painful part. The man who gives everything in the hope of securing loyalty is the one most likely to lose it, because loyalty born from dependence is conditional, and conditions change. Schopenhauer warned that men who chase unconditional love set themselves up for conditional reality. They think romance will override instinct, that devotion will rewrite biology. It won't. And when the illusion shatters, it's not just the relationship that ends, it's the identity he built around it. That's why heartbreak for men feels like more than loss. It feels like collapse. Because when you build your entire life around someone else's validation, their absence isn't just painful, it's annihilating. The truth is, you can survive rejection. What destroys you is dependency. And the only way to avoid that destruction is to do what Schopenhauer urged: detach. Not with bitterness, but with clarity. Not to love less, but to see clearly enough to love without losing yourself. Because once you lose yourself, no one, not even the person you gave everything to, will come back to save you. Every great transformation starts with a moment of awakening. It's not always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet realization that the life you've been living isn't yours. You look around and see how much of yourself you've given away. The dreams you shelved, the boundaries you erased, the voice you silenced. And suddenly, the illusion that once felt warm starts to feel suffocating. Schopenhauer called this the breaking of the spell. It's the moment a man stops asking, "What do I need to do to keep her?" and starts asking, "What do I need to do to keep myself?" This isn't a call to bitterness, it's a call to ownership. Because the truth is, you cannot lead, protect, or even truly love if you've surrendered the throne of your own life. The men who remain strong in the face of manipulation, shifting loyalty, and emotional pressure aren't cold, they're anchored. They see the smile, but also the strategy. They enjoy the warmth, but refuse to make it their only source of light. And here's the paradox. The less you need someone to complete you, the more respect you command in their presence. Because respect is born from boundaries, and boundaries can only exist when you're willing to walk away. Schopenhauer's most misunderstood advice was this: detach not to avoid love, but to avoid enslavement, to give freely without needing permission, to stand firm in the face of charm, guilt, or beauty, not because you're immune, but because you're aware. Modern Stoicism echoes this wisdom. The Stoic doesn't reject connection, he simply refuses to be ruled by it. He understands that emotions are signals, not commands, and he filters every influence, even the most seductive, through the lens of reason. This is the mindset shift that turns prey into sovereign. It's the moment you realize that a man's worth isn't measured by how much he can give away, but by how much of himself he can protect. When you stop seeking validation, you become unpredictable. When you stop fearing loss, you become unshakable. And when you stop letting someone else's moods dictate your mission, you become unstoppable. Because in the end, power isn't about control over others. It's about control over yourself. And that's the one thing no one can take, unless you hand it to them. Schopenhauer never wrote to make you hate women. That was never the mission. He wrote to strip away illusions, because illusions make you weak. And weakness, in a world driven by instinct and advantage, is an invitation to be used. His message was simple, but it demanded courage. Stop expecting anyone, man or woman, to save you. Build yourself so completely that you no longer need saving. This is the essence of sovereignty. The sovereign man is not cold or detached from life. He can love deeply, laugh loudly, and give generously. But every choice he makes, every risk he takes, every word he speaks, is his own. He lives with a kind of inner gravity. People can orbit him, but they cannot move him without his consent. In the modern world, this isn't just philosophy, it's survival. We live in an era of disposable affection, instant temptation, and endless alternatives. The man who ties his identity to anyone's approval is building his castle on sand, but the man who builds his life around his own mission stands on stone. He knows that relationships are part of life, not the point of life. He knows that love can be beautiful, but only when it's chosen freely, not traded for validation. This is why Schopenhauer spoke of detachment not as withdrawal, but as mastery, to deny the impulses that would enslave you, to see clearly through the haze of romance, flattery, and fear, to remain unshaken whether she stays or walks away. And here's the truth, most men never learn until it's too late. The man who can walk away is the man who never has to, because the same strength that frees you from need is the strength that makes people want to stay. So, this is the code. Never build your identity on someone else's opinion of you. Never compromise your mission for temporary comfort. Never hand over your boundaries in exchange for peace. And never apologize for being a man who demands respect from others and from himself. You are not here to be ruled by emotion, whether it's yours or hers. You are not here to be trained into obedience by guilt or fear. You are here to live with clarity, purpose, and a spine that doesn't bend to keep someone from leaving. Because the man who sees reality as it is no longer fears it. He can love a woman fully, without illusion. He can walk beside her proudly, but never behind her out of fear. And if the day comes when her path leads away, he lets her go and keeps walking his own. That's not bitterness. That's not cruelty. That's sovereignty. So don't become angry. Become aware. Don't become cold. Become clear. And remember, the man who needs nothing commands everything.